true Reddit reads. Today's episode is Workplace Revenge, Malicious Compliance. My boss said follow the rules exactly. So I did, and he regretted it. Posted by u/throwaway compliance king. Before we jump into today's wild Reddit story, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another episode. Alright, let's get into it. So for context, I work at a mid-sized logistics company in the Midwest. Nothing glamorous, just rows of cubicles, buzzing fluorescent lights, burnt coffee, and the constant smell of cardboard from the warehouse downstairs. I'd been there for 5 years, long enough to know every shortcut, every hiccup in our system, and every unspoken rule that kept things running smoothly. And then we got a new boss. Enter Mr. Efficiency. His real name was David, but everyone called him that because the guy talked about efficiency like it was a religion. At first, I thought he'd be alright. New boss, new ideas, whatever. But on day one, he walked in holding a binder so thick it could stop bullets. This, he announced, is the official company rulebook. And starting today, every employee is expected to follow it exactly as written. No exceptions. You know that moment when the entire room silently panics, but nobody says anything out loud?
Yeah, that.
Here's the thing, the rulebook was outdated. And not just grandma still uses Windows XP, outdated. I mean outdated like half the procedures reference software we stopped using in 2019. The timing rules didn't match the workload. Some processes literally made things slower. And one section still listed a manager who retired 3 years ago. We didn't follow the rulebook because it didn't work. We followed the unwritten system that had been operating fine for years. But David didn't want to hear any of that. During his first team meeting, I raised my hand and politely said, "Hey, the manual's great for new hires, but some of the rules don't match the current workflow. Maybe we can go over them together." And I swear, he looked at me like I'd insulted his firstborn child.
No.
The manual exists for a reason. If everyone followed the rules, this department would function perfectly. Starting today, no shortcuts. No improvisation. No exceptions. Okay, dude. Whatever. But things went downhill fast. Rule number 1. All emails must be responded to within exactly 10 minutes. Well, that sounds great until you're handling customer claims, freight delays, and broken packages all at once. I explained, again, that 10 minutes wasn't realistic when you had to dig through order histories, call carriers, etc. David's reply? That sounds like a personal time management issue. Sure, David.
Sure.
Rule number 2. Every customer issue must be logged on Form 16B before any action is taken. Form 16B is 3 pages long.
3
pages. For a missing box of socks. The old system was simple. Take notes, resolve issue, log the result. Fast, clean, and customers loved us. David didn't like that. If the company created Form 16B, then Form 16B should be used. Rule number 3. All breaks must start and end at the exact minute listed in the handbook. Not rounding. Not close enough. Exact minute. You return from break 30 seconds late? David was standing by your desk like some kind of break time police. At this point, morale was sinking like a brick in a lake. Customers were frustrated. Coworkers were tense. Productivity tanked. I tried to warn him. I really did. One afternoon, I stopped by his office and said, "Look, these rules were made for a different workflow. If we follow them literally, things will slow down, not speed up." He sat back, crossed his arms, and said the magical phrase that started everything. Then follow the rules exactly, and let the results speak for themselves. I want full compliance from you, starting now. Oh, he shouldn't have said that. Because if there's one thing I'm good at, it's following instructions. And that, dear Reddit, was the moment I realized he wanted malicious compliance. He didn't know it, but he asked for it. So I smiled politely, nodded, and said, "Okay, David. I'll follow the rules exactly." He actually looked proud of himself. Poor man. He had no idea what he'd just unleashed. The very next morning, I walked into work with the company rulebook under my arm like it was the U.S. Constitution. David saw it, smiled. That's what I like to see. Oh, Buddy, you have no idea. 7:59 a.m., I stood at my desk. Because, per the rules, employees may only sit once their shift officially begins at 8 a.m. Normally, we all sat early and got situated. Not today. At 8 hours on the dot, I sat. David looked confused. One of my coworkers whispered, "Oh no, it's starting." Email rule time. A customer emailed me a detailed complaint about a shipment delay. I opened the manual. Rule: all emails must receive an initial response within 10 minutes. The rule didn't say it had to be helpful. So I replied, "This email has been received. Per company policy, a follow-up will occur after completion of Form 16B. And then I downloaded Form 16B. 3 pages. Printed it. Filled it out in handwriting. Scanned it. Uploaded it. Attached it. Filed it in the physical binder. This process took 25 minutes. David came by. "You're working slowly." "No, sir," I said cheerfully. "I'm following the rules exactly." He didn't like that answer. Break time. My break started at 10:15. The rule said, breaks must start and end precisely on time. So at 10 hours 14 minutes and 59 seconds I stood up, walked away, and spent exactly 15 minutes in the break room staring at the wall. At 10 hours and 30 minutes I walked back. David was waiting. "You didn't check the printer? There's a backlog. That would be performing work during break time. The manual forbids that, sir." His left eye twitched. Form 16B chaos. By noon, I had filled out 9 Form 16 Boliviano. Normally, I'd have resolved 20+ customer issues by then. But David wanted rules. And the rules said paperwork first, action second. Clients were calling nonstop. My coworkers watched the madness unfold with the same energy people have when they witness a slow-motion car crash. David stormed over, slamming his hand on my desk. "What is going on? Why are your numbers so low today?" "Just following the rules," I said, flipping open the binder. He leaned over, pointing angrily. "These rules are not meant to slow you down." I shrugged. "Then the rules need updating. But per your instruction, I am required to follow them exactly." He turned tomato red. "You're being difficult."
No, sir.
"I'm being compliant." My coworkers swear they saw him inhale sharply, like he was trying not to scream. Corporate called. Not me. Not the team. They called David. Because customers had complained. Shipping partners complained. One client actually demanded to know why we were suddenly running like a government office from 1994. David disappeared into his office. 10 minutes later, he came out looking like he'd aged 9 years. He called me in. "Close the door." I sat. He sighed deeply, then said the sweetest words I'd ever heard. "Please stop following the rules exactly." "Oh, I wasn't done. I'm happy to follow any process you approve, just need that in writing." He closed his eyes, pinched the bridge of his nose.
Fine.
"Fine. I'll revise the policies." And that is how malicious compliance works, folks. All he had to do was listen. But no, he wanted blind rule following. And he got it. Story 2. Coworkers tried to get me fired, but I turned the tables. Posted by you/throwaway turned the tables. Workplace revenge, malicious coworkers. For context, I'm a 26-year-old working in customer service at a mid-sized electronics company in the US.
I'm good at my job.
Not bragging, just being honest. I'm friendly with customers, accurate with reports, and rarely make mistakes. Apparently, that's enough to make some people hate you. My department had 3 people who acted friendly, but had the personality of expired milk. Tara, loud, dramatic, loves gossip. Kyle, competes with everyone even when no one else is competing. Shannon, smiles to your face, complains about you the moment you walk away. They weren't my friends, but I stayed polite. Kept to myself. Showed up, did my job, clocked out. But then something changed. I started getting too good at my job. Customers asked for me by name. My supervisor trusted me with tasks the others didn't get. My performance metrics went up. Their popularity went down. And jealousy? Oh, it does not sit quietly. The small mistakes start appearing. It began with emails I supposedly forgot to send, then customers I never followed up with, then files that went missing from my folder. Thing is, I never forgot those things. I triple-check everything. Then one afternoon, my supervisor pulled me aside. "Hey, so I've gotten a few reports about incomplete work from you. Are you doing okay?" I was confused. What incomplete work? She listed things I never touched, tasks I never logged, emails I never sent. I walked back to my desk stunned. And that's when I saw it. Tara and Kyle whispering, glancing at me, then whispering again. My stomach dropped. Something wasn't right. And I had a feeling I was being set up. A week later, HR emailed me asking to discuss recent concerns about your performance. I felt sick. I was being pushed into a corner. Someone wanted me gone. Someone wanted my position. And they weren't hiding it anymore. That was the moment I decided. If they wanted a war, they picked the wrong person. HR meetings are never fun, but this one? It was a full-out ambush. The HR rep sat stiffly with a printed packet. My supervisor had a folder. And I sat there confused as a lost tourist. HR opened with, "We've received several internal reports that you've been neglecting tasks and causing delays." My jaw dropped. Reports from who? They didn't say names, but I knew. I knew. They listed everything. Claims I never resolved. Follow-ups I ignored. Files I lost. Email responses I skipped. It sounded bad. Really bad. But here's the thing. I keep receipts. All of them. I save drafts. Screenshots. Time-stamped logs. Everything. Because I've seen enough workplace drama to know better. I calmly pulled out my own folder. I actually documented all these dates. "Can I show my side?" HR nodded cautiously. Receipt number 1. An email they said I never replied to? I pulled my sent box. Time-stamped. Attached. Professional. HR blinked. Receipt number 2. A customer issue I never handled. I showed the digital record of the resolution, with the customer's signature, and the praise they sent. Supervisor stared. Receipt number 3. The missing file. I pulled up the original file and the system log showing who accessed it last.
Not me.
The last person who accessed it?
Kyle.
I didn't say anything. Just let HR connect the dots. HR gets uncomfortable. HR paused the meeting. We need to review some of this. I could tell this wasn't the first time they'd heard something suspicious. Something was up. Someone was lying. And I was the target. But what happened next confirmed everything. I walked out of the HR office and past the break room. Inside, Tara and Shannon. Laughing. Whispering. Looking way too happy. Tara saw me walk by and said loudly, "He's probably crying in the bathroom right now." Shannon giggled. That moment? That was the fire lighting under me. They wanted me fired?
No.
No, I wasn't going anywhere. I was about to turn this workplace into a lesson they'd never forget. I knew confronting them directly was pointless. People like that don't confess. They double down. So I did something better. I let them expose themselves. Step 1. Document everything. From that day forward, I recorded every task I completed, every email I sent, every customer interaction, every file I touched, every change in timestamps. I saved everything to a private external drive. Step 2. Watch their patterns. Coworkers who sabotage usually slip up. They get messy. They get confident. And I noticed something. Every time something went wrong, Kyle or Tara had been near my desk. Every time a file was moved, Shannon had been in the system last. Every time HR got a report, those three were whispering earlier that day. Step 3. The sting operation. The opportunity came when I was assigned a major client file, one of the biggest accounts we had. I knew they'd target it. So I did something important. I saved 2 copies. One real one on the system. One decoy file in a shared folder. The decoy file looked real. Same name. Same date. But it was empty. I left it open on my desktop. Then I went to lunch. Sure enough, when I came back, the decoy file was open, edited, corrupted,
And resaved.
but here's the best part. Our system automatically logs who accessed what. Guess who accessed the decoy file?
Tara, Kyle, and Shannon.
All three. I didn't say a word. Not yet. Step 4. The big meeting. The next morning, HR called me in again. And surprise, surprise, they had another report. My big client file had been ruined. HR looked disappointed. Supervisor looked annoyed.
But I
was calm, because this time, I had the smoking gun. HR, your client file was altered and nearly caused a major problem. Can you explain this? Me. Absolutely. May I show you something? I opened the system records. Right there on the screen. File access log user. Tara, 12:41 p.m. user. Kyle, 12:53 p.m. user. Shannon, 1:09 p.m. HR leaned forward. Supervisor squinted at the screen. I explained everything. The decoy file. The purpose. The timeline. My suspicion. Their behavior. The logs. The office was quiet enough to hear a paperclip drop. HR's jaw literally dropped. This is very serious misconduct, HR said slowly. Supervisor spoke next. I'd like to review your full documentation of the last few weeks. I handed over my folder. Receipts.
logs,
Screenshots. Timestamps.
notes.
Everything. HR took it like it was a bomb about to go off. But the cherry on top? I showed them a recording. Not audio, just my screen recording system logs. Company policy allows recording your own screen, and that includes system timestamps. The recording showed my real file untouched, my decoy file being accessed, timestamps matching my logs. That was the moment the entire situation flipped. Later that afternoon, HR called me back in. Their tone was completely different. Thank you for bringing all of this forward. We've completed our review. My heart was pounding. Then HR continued. We have terminated Tara, Kyle, and Shannon effective immediately. I blinked. My supervisor added. And we want to apologize for the stress and false accusations made against you. You handled this with unbelievable professionalism. I could have cried. But the best part? They offered me a promotion. Not a huge one, but better pay, a nicer workspace, higher authority, more trust from management. All because I stayed calm, collected, and smart. Walking through the office that day, I passed their empty desks. I didn't smile. I didn't smirk. I didn't gloat. I just walked by, logged into my newly upgraded system access, and started my day. Because the truth is, you don't have to fight dirty when you already know you're clean. Story 3. Manager tried to humiliate me in front of everyone. He picked the wrong employee. Posted by you/throwaway humiliation revenge. Workplace, revenge, public embarrassment. For context, I'm a 25-year-old working as a customer support rep in a home appliances company in the US. I like my job. I'm good at it. I'm not the loudest person in the room. I don't brag, I don't argue. I just work. My manager, Derek, was the exact opposite. He loved attention. He loved power. And he loved being right. Even when he wasn't. He wasn't just a bad boss. He was the type who treated meetings like a stage and employees like props. He'd call people out over the smallest mistakes just to make himself look smart. I stayed out of his way for months. I was polite, quiet, and respectful. But the moment he saw customers choosing to speak with me instead of him, he changed. It started small, snarky comments during team meetings. Well, if Opie ever learns how to respond on time, we might get somewhere. People would stare at their desks awkwardly. I'd force a smile and keep working. Then little things. Him questioning my reports. Double-checking my calls. Acting like everything I did needed approval. I brushed it off. Until the day he humiliated me on purpose. Every Monday we had a team meeting. Usually boring. Usually just Derek bragging. This Monday, he had a mission. I sat with my teammates, flipping open my notebook, when Derek walked in holding a stack of printed papers. He slapped them onto the conference table. "OP," he said loudly. "Can you explain this?" I froze. Everyone turned to look at me. He held up a sheet of paper, one of my weekly customer feedback summaries. But he had purposely highlighted 3 comments out of 50. And of course, they were the neutral ones. Not bad. Not complaints. Just normal feedback. But Derek twisted his face like it was the worst thing he'd ever seen. "I don't understand why your numbers are slipping. This is disappointing." People shifted uncomfortably. My face felt hot, but I kept calm. "Those comments aren't negative," I said carefully. "The metrics are still above standard." But Derek smirked like he'd been waiting for me to respond. "Oh, so now you're arguing with me? In front of the team?" I realized what was happening. This wasn't about feedback. This wasn't about performance. This was about control. He wanted to embarrass me.
Publicly.
In front of everyone. I swallowed hard and stayed quiet. Arguing would only make it worse. He continued tearing into me. Loudly, dramatically, unnecessarily, until even the interns were staring at their notepads. I went home angry.
Shaking.
Humiliated. My friends told me to quit. But something in me snapped.
No.
I wasn't going to let this man treat me like that. Not in front of everyone. Not again. If he wanted to play games, fine. I was about to beat him at his own. Chapter 3. The plan that started with one email. I knew Derek wouldn't change. I knew he'd do it again. And I knew the company was already suspicious of him. Several people had quietly left under his management. So instead of quitting, I documented everything. His comments. His nitpicking. His sudden role changes. The unnecessary public callouts. I saved emails, meeting notes, time-stamped messages, screenshots of him approving things then denying it later, customer praise that directly contradicted his claims. I even asked a senior coworker, who hated Derek more than anyone, for help. She said, "Don't worry. He'll expose himself sooner or later." She was right, because 2 weeks later, Derek made the mistake of a lifetime. Each team member was assigned a customer satisfaction improvement plan to present on Friday. Derek threw it at us with zero guidance. But I worked hard, made charts, gathered data, real numbers, good ones. On Thursday, Derek emailed me. "Make sure your report matches MY format. Don't make me look stupid." He attached a sample. I followed it exactly. I didn't add anything. Didn't remove anything. Didn't use my own layout. I did everything exactly the way he wrote it. Friday came. Everyone presented. Then it was my turn. I opened the report on the screen, and Derek's face dropped like he'd seen a ghost. He interrupted me immediately. "Why does it look like that? You sent me this format." I replied calmly. "I followed your instructions."
He scoffed loudly. "No."
"Absolutely not. You clearly don't know what you're doing." The room went silent. He continued mocking me, openly, loudly, dramatically, until coworkers looked at each other with wide eyes. And that's when it happened. A senior manager, his boss, walked in through the back door. He'd heard everything, and Derek didn't know he was there. The senior manager, Mr. Fletcher, stepped forward. "What exactly is going on here?" Derek spun around, pale. "Oh, sir, I was just giving OP feedback." "No," I said quietly. "He's been doing this for weeks now." The room held its breath. Fletcher looked at me. "Explain." For the first time, Derek didn't interrupt. I told Fletcher how Derek publicly called me out, how he highlighted harmless comments, how he mocked me during meetings, how he demanded I follow his format, how I followed it exactly, how he then humiliated me for it. Fletcher turned to Derek. "Did you give OP this format?" Derek stammered. Well, yes, but... "So, you're humiliating employees for doing exactly what you told them?" Everyone stared at him. He was sweating. But I wasn't done. I opened my folder. "Sir, I have documentation. Emails. Screenshots. Messages. Timestamps. Everything." I placed them gently on the table. The senior manager picked them up. His expression changed instantly. Everyone, meeting dismissed. Derek, stay. We all filed out quietly. The moment the door closed behind me, the entire hallway erupted. Oh my God, you really did it. He's done. I've been waiting years for this. Everyone had stories about him. Everyone was tired of him. Everyone backed me up. Monday morning, I arrived at work nervous. When I walked in, Derek's office light was off. His desk? Empty. HR was waiting for me. Can you come in for a minute? My stomach dropped, but it wasn't what I expected. HR smiled warmly. We reviewed everything from Friday. Deep breath. And we want to thank you, they explained. Multiple people had complained about Derek. They never had enough proof. My documentation matched everything. The senior manager confirmed Derek lied. Derek tried to blame me again in the meeting. And that was the final straw. Then HR said, Derek has been terminated, and we'd like to offer you a senior team lead position. I almost cried.
Me.
The quiet one. The one he tried to embarrass. I accepted. Walking into the office after that,
People clapped.
some hugged me, some whispered finally. I sat at my new desk. Better seat, better pay, better respect. I didn't celebrate, didn't brag. I just opened my computer and started working. Because the truth is simple. When someone tries to embarrass you publicly, you don't have to shout back. Just let them expose themselves. And Derek? He picked the wrong employee. Story 4. They cut my hours to punish me, so I made them lose thousands. Posted by you/throwaway hours revenge. Workplace, revenge, petty management. For context, I'm 24, working part-time at a home improvement store in the US. Think giant orange aprons, endless aisles of tools, and customers who ask you where everything is even if you're holding boxes. I'd been there 2 years. Always early. Never missed shifts. Customers loved me. Then we got a new assistant manager. Rick. You know the type. Loud voice. Shiny belt buckle. Walks like he owns the place even though he's basically middle management with a fancy walkie-talkie. At first he acted cool. He joked around, tried to bond with everyone. But the second he realized I knew the store better than him, he instantly disliked me. It started with little jabs. Oh, OP thinks they know everything. Maybe I should be training you. Don't get too confident. I ignored it. Then one afternoon, a customer stopped in mid-aisle. Customer. Sorry, I was actually waiting for OP. They always help me. Rick's face went red. And from that moment on, he decided I was a threat. The punishment begins. The next week, I checked the schedule. I went from 30 hours to 12. 12. I thought it was a mistake. So I asked him politely, Hey, is something wrong with my schedule? He smirked. You've been a bit too comfortable. Gotta give other people a chance. Other people? He gave MY hours to his favorite employee, a guy who literally spent half his shift hiding in the paint aisle scrolling on his phone. I told him, this is going to affect my rent. He shrugged. That's not my problem. I walked away angry, tired, frustrated, but mostly, I was determined. If Rick wanted to cut my hours,
Fine.
I'd make sure corporate saw exactly how much money he cost them. The store was already chaotic. Everyone was stressed.
We were understaffed.
And now, the person who normally handled the big orders, the lumber requests, the forklift runs, the contractor accounts, was only there 12 hours a week.
And who is it? Me.
The specialists and contractors loved me because I was fast, accurate, and didn't treat them like they were inconveniencing me. Contractors would literally walk in and say,
Where's OP?
I only want OP.
But now?
I wasn't there. And the ones who were there?
Slow.
Untrained. Didn't know the system. The first Friday with my reduced schedule, the front desk was a disaster. Contractors were angry. Orders were delayed. One guy stormed out saying, Forget it, I'm taking my business somewhere else. Rick looked stressed, but not enough to fix his decision. The breaking point begins. On Monday, I came in for my tiny shift. Within 10 minutes, 3 contractors lined up waiting for me. Rick watched from across the store, annoyed. One contractor said loudly, "Thank God you're here. No one else knows how to do anything." Rick's jaw tightened. Another one approached him saying, "You need more employees like Opie. You cut their hours? Are you kidding?" Rick tried smiling through it. "Well, scheduling changes." The contractor waved him off. "That was stupid. You're losing business."
Oof.
I kept my face neutral. But inside, I knew karma was warming up. Every Wednesday morning, the store receives a massive shipment, thousands of dollars of merchandise, heavy appliances, grills, seasonal stuff, lumber bundles, all of it. There are only 2 certified forklift drivers on staff. I'm one of them. Guess who the other one is? Phone guy. The one Rick gave MY hours to. A man who would rather hide behind a pallet than work. That Wednesday, phone guy called out. Guess who wasn't scheduled that day because Rick cut my hours?
Me.
Guess who now had 2 semi-trucks full of heavy merchandise and no one certified to lift it?
Rick.
Chaos ensues. I wasn't there, but everyone told me later. Trucks were waiting for hours. Drivers were angry. The unloading dock was backed up. The floor was empty. Customers were complaining. Managers from other departments came down to help but couldn't touch the forklift. Corporate pays penalty fees for delayed trucks. Each hour delayed? Expensive. And this went on for almost 5 hours. Equals. Guess who Rick called? At 11:30 a.m., my phone buzzed. Rick, can you come in right now? Me. I'm not on the schedule. Rick, I need you here. We're backed up. Me. I don't control the schedule. You do. Long silence. Then he tried again. I'll give you an extra shift this week. No thanks, I replied calmly. I already made plans based on the schedule you wrote. He hung up. And I'm not kidding, he was so angry he threw his clipboard across the office. I didn't come in. He demanded I show up after cutting my hours.
Nope.
Friday morning, I walked in for my tiny 4-hour shift. Before I could clock in, the general manager called me to the office. "Jim, Opie, can you explain why you weren't here Wednesday?" Me. I wasn't scheduled. GM squinted. "You're certified on the forklift, correct?" Yes. And the only other driver called out? Yes. And you still weren't here? I can't come in if the manager removes my hours. The GM suddenly looked furious, but not at me. "Rick," he said, "my office."
Now.
Rick walked in with the confidence of a wet sock. "GM, why did you cut Opie's hours knowing they are one of only 2 certified forklift operators?" Rick stuttered. "Well, I needed to give other employees a chance."
No.
Stop. The GM pulled up a report. The store lost $14,600 that Wednesday. $14,600. Late truck fees. Customer cancellations. Contractor refunds. Lost sales. Operational penalties. The GM slammed the paper on the desk. "This is because you didn't schedule the only available certified operator." Rick tried to blame me. I called OP and asked them to come in. The GM turned to me. "Is that true?" I nodded. "Yes," he called. "But I wasn't on the schedule, and company policy says we don't have to come in if we're not scheduled." GM nodded firmly. "You followed policy. Good." Then he turned to Rick. "You caused a massive operational failure, and you blamed an employee you punished without justification." Rick sat there, sweating like a soda can in July. The following Monday, the new schedule went up. My hours? Back to 30. Then 32. Then 35. Rick's hours?
Cut. Down.
Hard. A week later, he was demoted. 2 weeks later, transferred to another store 2 hours away. Everyone knew what happened. Everyone whispered about it. And everyone suddenly wanted to be on my good side. But I didn't brag. Didn't rub it in. I just did my job. Because the truth is, you don't have to get revenge. Sometimes you just let people destroy themselves. Rick tried to punish me. He tried to cut my income. Instead, he cost the company thousands and his own career. All because he let his ego write checks his management skills couldn't cash. Story 5. My supervisor wouldn't listen, so I gave him exactly what he asked for. R/malicious compliance. Buckle up, because this one still makes me laugh. So, I work at a mid-sized manufacturing warehouse in the Midwest. It's one of those places where the building is old, the AC barely works, and somehow the same forklift has been temporarily broken for 6 months. I'm a shift lead, not a manager, not a supervisor, just the guy people come to because I've been here long enough to know where everything is and how the workflow actually works. Enter Calvin, our brand new supervisor. Now, I'm not exaggerating when I say this man walked in like he came straight out of a TED Talk titled, How to Lead People You Don't Respect. He was young, early 30s, but acted like we were all NPCs in his success story. On his first day, he said, I don't need to learn how you guys do things. I'm here to implement efficiency.
Cool. Great.
Love that. Except our warehouse was already extremely efficient. We had systems that took years to refine. But Calvin?
Nope.
Within a week, he'd already changed the workflow, rearranged the picking stations, eliminated break rotations, and replaced our organized labeling system with his color-coded genius plan. The result? Chaos. Absolute chaos. Packages were going to the wrong trucks. People were bumping into each other in aisles. Orders were late for the first time in years. So, me being a reasonable adult, I pulled him aside. Hey, Calvin, the new system is backing everything up. We need to revert a few parts or adjust the flow. He literally smirked at me. You're not here to think. You're here to follow my process.
Ah, good. Great.
Love that for us.
So I said, all right.
You're the boss. And that was the moment. The seed of malicious compliance was planted. Calvin decided he needed structure and total order, so he printed out a 9-page packet titled, Calvin's Operational Excellence Workflow. He slapped it on everyone's station and said, from today on, these rules must be followed exactly as written. No shortcuts, no changes, no improvising. He looked right at me when he said that. Now here's the problem. His precious 9-page masterpiece. It was written like an academic paper, not a functioning workflow.
For example,
Step 4 had to be completed before Step 3. Step 7 required info you didn't get until Step 12. Step 10 and Step 11 contradicted each other. Step 2 literally required us to stop and wait for a supervisor check every single order. We normally pushed over 400 orders a day. Under Calvin's system, we were lucky to get 60. Workers were frustrated. Drivers were waiting outside for hours. And customers were calling non-stop asking where their shipments were. So I went to Calvin again. Hey, your process has some steps that don't match real workflow. Can we adjust? He cut me off immediately.
No.
I said follow the system exactly. Do I need to repeat myself? Oh, okay, bud. Say less. You want exact compliance? You're gonna GET exact compliance. The next morning, the whole team agreed. We were done trying to save Calvin from himself. From that moment forward, we followed his rules word for word, literally, painfully, exactly as written. Some highlights. Step 2. Wait for supervisor approval. His rule said we must stop processing an order until he personally checked it. We lined up 30 orders on his desk. He panicked. His face turned red. Why are all these on my desk? You said you needed to check each order before we can continue. He tried to argue. I showed him his packet. He shut up. 2. Step 4 before Step 3 problem. Are you guys seriously doing Step 4 first? Yes, Calvin. Your packet says Step 4 must be completed before Step 3. He looked at the paper again. I swear the man aged 5 years in 10 seconds. 3. Step 7/12 contradiction. We had to stop assembly 11 times because instructions made no sense. 4. Supervisor's sign-off bottleneck. Because of his bottleneck, every worker was just waiting, standing around, doing nothing, which meant productivity dropped by 92%. Corporate noticed. Oh yes, they noticed. Around 1 p.m., Calvin got called to the front office. The warehouse manager, district manager, and regional logistics director were there. We could hear them from inside the warehouse. Why is output down? Why are drivers waiting 4 hours? What do you mean there are no packed orders? Calvin tried to blame us. But see, we came prepared. I kept a copy of his packet. Everyone did. We documented everything. When corporate came down to the warehouse floor, they demanded an explanation. So we all showed them the same thing. We're following Calvin's system exactly as he instructed. The district manager flipped through the 9-page packet and literally said, "This makes no sense." We all shrugged. Calvin looked like he was melting. Corporate told us, "Go back to the old system immediately." Then they asked, "Where is the shift lead who tried to warn you?" Everyone pointed to me. Corporate pulled me aside and said, "We understand you tried to prevent this. We appreciate your professionalism." Meanwhile, Calvin was still being lectured for another hour. By the end of the meeting, Calvin was removed as supervisor. Not fired, but demoted and transferred to a different department with 0 supervisory responsibilities.
He was pissed.
But we weren't done yet. 2 days later, the warehouse manager called me into the office. Not gonna lie, I was nervous. But instead, he said, "We're promoting you to interim supervisor. You'll run the floor until we hire someone with actual experience." I tried to hide my smile. It didn't work. Now here's the best part. Calvin, now working in inventory, had to report to me. The first day I gave him an instruction, he rolled his eyes and said, "That's not the system we used before." I smiled and told him, "You're not here to think. You're here to follow MY process." The look on his face was priceless. He didn't say another word. Story 6. They told me I was replaceable until I walked out. Okay, r/malicious compliance. Buckle up because this story still gets my blood boiling. So I, 29M, worked at a mid-sized logistics company on the East Coast. I wasn't a manager, but I basically was one, just without the title, respect, or paycheck. I handled scheduling, shipments, customer calls, training new hires, and putting out every fire humanly possible. If someone didn't show up, guess who filled in? If a client was upset, guess who had to fix it? If a truck was late, guess who stayed 3 extra hours?
Yep, me.
And honestly, I didn't even mind at first. I liked my coworkers. I liked being good at my job. And I liked that people depended on me. But then came our new director, Allison. You know the type. Corporate buzzword machine. Slides into every meeting with a Starbucks and an attitude. Acts like she knows everything after being in the building for 9 minutes. On her first day, she called a team meeting to establish expectations.
She said,
"No one here is irreplaceable. Not a single person. If you think you're special, you're not." Everyone side-eyed each other, and I remember thinking, well, that's a weird thing to lead with. Little did I know that line would come back to bite her hard. Things got bad fast. Allison started streamlining operations, which in corporate language meant cutting hours, refusing OT, increasing workload, ignoring employee feedback. She demanded maximum efficiency, but removed every tool we used to get efficiency. She also hated when anyone questioned her. And she especially hated me.
Why?
Because I knew my job better than she did, and she couldn't stand it. So she started doing petty things. Scheduling me for the worst shifts. Calling me out in meetings. Assigning me tasks for 3 people. Cutting me off whenever I tried to explain something. Then came the conversation. One afternoon, after she dumped yet another impossible task list on my desk, I said, "Listen, we're going to fall behind if we don't prioritize. I can't be in 3 places at once." She didn't even look up from her computer. "If you can't handle the workload, I'll find someone who can. You're replaceable. Everyone here is." It wasn't anger I felt. It was clarity. The kind of clarity that hits you like cold water. I simply said, "Good to know," and walked back to my station. That was the exact moment the idea formed. If I'm so replaceable, then replace me. From that day forward, I stopped going above and beyond. No more staying late. No more covering everyone's shifts. No more answering emails at home. No more doing manager responsibilities for free. I followed my job description to the letter. If a customer called after my shift ended, sorry, call tomorrow. If someone was late, not my problem. If we were short-staffed, I did my assigned job, nothing extra. If a client needed a rush shipment, I'll add it to the queue. And the place fall apart. Because here's the truth Allison refused to see. I wasn't irreplaceable because I was special. I was irreplaceable because they built the whole system around me doing 3 jobs. And when I stopped doing them, well, orders ran late. Clients complained non-stop. New hires quit because no one trained them. Drivers showed up to empty docks. IT had to step in because emails went unanswered. Everything crumbled slowly at first, then all at once. Allison kept calling me into her office. Why aren't things getting done? And every time, I smiled and said, because those tasks aren't part of my job description. She hated that. One Friday morning, Allison snapped. She marched up to my station with a stack of paperwork and slammed it down. I need all of this done by the end of the day. I looked through it. It was at least 3 days of work. I simply said, that's impossible. She folded her arms. Then maybe this isn't the job for you. As I've said before, you're replaceable. I nodded slowly. Okay. Then replace me. She blinked. What? I quit. Her jaw dropped. No, you can't just walk out. We need you. I actually laughed. You said I'm replaceable. So replace me. I grabbed my stuff, handed her my badge, and walked out while she sputtered like she was choking on her own words. But the real chaos didn't start until the next week. According to my coworkers, who called me within 24 hours, my absence caused pure panic. Here's what happened. There was no schedule because I was the one who did it. No one knew how to handle the client accounts I had managed. The biggest client threatened to pull their contract. 3 new hires quit because no one trained them. The warehouse fell behind by almost 4 days. Corporate came down fast. They weren't happy. They asked Allison what happened to the employee who had handled everything. Apparently, she tried to blame me until corporate interviewed the rest of the team and realized Allison had been leaning on me to run the entire operation for months without proper compensation or support. 2 weeks later, Allison was fired. And the best part? The company reached out to me. They wanted me back. Higher pay, better hours, actual manager title. And for the first time ever, I didn't feel guilty saying no. I politely declined and said, I finally found a job where they treat me like a human being. But I wish you all the best finding someone to replace me. The silence on the phone was beautiful. Story 7. Company refused to pay me overtime, so I followed their policy to the letter. So I, 28 male, worked as a shipping coordinator for a distribution company somewhere in the US. Nothing fancy, just the standard, we ship stuff people forget they ordered type of business. My job was supposed to be scheduling shipments, closing out orders, tracking inventory, and coordinating the loading dock. But in reality, I was doing customer service, warehouse planning, troubleshooting driver issues, training new employees, plus working late almost every single day. We were always understaffed, and I was always the reliable one, which basically meant corporate used me like a free unlimited labor cheat code. And yet, I didn't complain at first. I liked my coworkers. I liked being good at my job. And I liked that people trusted me. Then one day, I checked my pay stub. The hours didn't match. I had worked 53 hours that week. I got paid for 40. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Companies mess up payroll all the time. So I walked into HR like, hey, I think my overtime didn't get added. HR rep smiles like she's delivering great news. Oh, we don't pay overtime for your position. I blinked. What? You absolutely do. I've gotten overtime before. She shakes her head. No, that was incorrect. Corporate decided that your role is salary flex, meaning your base rate covers extra time worked. I had never heard that phrase before, because it didn't exist. That's illegal, I said. She shrugged. That's company policy. I told my manager.
He said.
Just be a team player, man.
Ah.
So that's how we're doing it.
Okay then.
If they want me to follow company policy, I'm gonna follow it exactly. I went home that night fuming but also thinking, if I wasn't getting paid overtime anymore, then I had zero incentive to stay late. So I pulled up our employee handbook. And I read that thing like it was the US Constitution. And that's when I found it. A hidden gem. Buried on page 36. Salary flex employees are required to work a standard 40-hour week. Any hours beyond 40 must be pre-approved in writing by management. Read that again. They refused to pay me overtime. And they didn't allow overtime unless it was pre-approved. Guess who never approved overtime?
Yep.
Management. So the next morning, I walked in at exactly 8 a.m. I left at exactly 4 p.m. And at 3:58 p.m., I physically shut down my computer. My manager runs over. Hey, where are you going? We've got 30 more orders. I smiled.
Sorry.
Company policy. No overtime without written approval. He frowned. Well, I'm approving it.
Great, I said.
Put it in an email. His eye twitched. Just stay late, okay?
Nope.
Can't. Company policy. And I walked out. For the first time ever, I felt power. Within 1 week, the consequences hit like a semi-truck. Because here's the thing. I wasn't being dramatic. I wasn't being petty. I was just doing exactly what they demanded. And guess what happens when the only person who knows how to close orders, how to edit bills of lading, how to fix system errors, how to reroute trucks, and how to keep shipments organized, suddenly only works 40 hours? Absolute. Warehouse. Carnage. Orders piled up so badly that the loading dock became a maze. Drivers refused to wait any longer and left. Packages got mislabeled. Inventory counts went off by the hundreds. Customers started emailing every hour. And every day at 4 p.m. I'd say, "All right, everyone, see you tomorrow." My manager would follow me to the door like, "Dude, please, just stay a little longer, this is a mess." And every day I'd reply, "Then approve overtime in writing." But he couldn't, because corporate refused. They wanted free labor, not paid labor. 2 weeks in, corporate sent the district manager to identify inefficiencies. He walked the warehouse. He saw the backlog. He saw the empty loading dock. He saw orders days behind. Then he pulled me aside. "Why is everything delayed?" I said, "I'm not allowed to work overtime." He frowned. "No one said that." I pulled out the email from HR and the handbook policy. He read it, looked uncomfortable, then said, "Why didn't you escalate this sooner?" I did. My manager told me to be a team player. He clenched his jaw. Then he called an emergency meeting with HR, my manager, and the regional director. I wasn't in the room, but my coworkers heard yelling. Loud yelling. Apparently corporate didn't know HR had reclassified an entire position into unpaid overtime. And apparently they really didn't like that doing so caused a massive operational collapse. When the meeting ended, my manager had the face of a man who had spiritually aged 40 years. HR avoided eye contact for the rest of the day. And corporate? Oh, corporate had a very different tone. The next morning, the district manager came straight to my desk.
He said,
"Effective immediately, overtime for your role is reinstated and will be paid at time and a half." I politely nodded. "Great. Please put that in writing."
He did.
Then he added, "We also reviewed your responsibilities. You've been doing the work of 2 positions. We're giving you a raise, retroactive for the last 6 months." I was stunned. Then he said, "We're also replacing your manager. Effective today." I tried to keep a straight face. I failed. HR also got restructured, which is corporate language for "we cleaned house." The best part? Once everything was official, my manager cornered me and said, "You knew this would happen if you followed the rules, didn't you?" I shrugged. "I'm just following company policy."
He didn't respond.
He just walked away. Story 8. Coworkers stole credit for my work, So I exposed everything. Posted by you/throwaway credit chaos. Okay, buckle up because this story still gets my blood pressure up. This happened about a year ago, and it's the reason my former coworker, let's call him Brad, still avoids looking at me whenever I bump into him anywhere in the city. For context, I, 28M, worked in the marketing department of a mid-sized tech company in Ohio. I wasn't new, but I wasn't a senior employee either. Just somewhere in the middle, experienced enough to handle major projects, but not high enough on the ladder to have any real power. Our department was run by Martha, a no-nonsense director with a sharp voice and sharper expectations. She liked efficiency, results, and people who didn't waste time. The problem? She trusted the wrong people. And one of those people was Brad. Brad, 33 male, was the office golden boy. Not because he was actually good at his job. Oh no, it was because he looked like someone who knew what he was doing. Smooth talker, shiny smile, firm handshake. Always volunteered for presentations, always hyped himself up, always gave corporate-friendly answers in meetings. He wasn't the hardest worker, but he was the loudest worker. And, unfortunately, in corporate America, sometimes loud, talented. Last year, our team was assigned a major project, rebranding one of our software products to boost sales. This was a huge deal. The rebranding had to roll out perfectly. New social campaigns, a fresh web page, email sequences, launch content, the works. Martha assigned roles. Brad was named Project Face, no surprise. I was assigned content strategy, research, and scripting, which honestly was like 80% of the actual work. I didn't complain. I liked being behind the scenes. But I should have seen it coming. 2 weeks in, I started noticing odd things. Things like Brad asking me to send in the drafts so he could review them. Brad copying every idea I pitched in internal docs and pasting them into his own presentation notes. Brad joining meetings without me and speaking as if he wrote everything. The first time it happened, I brushed it off. The second time, I felt uneasy. The third time, I started saving everything to my personal time-stamped work folder. Because I knew exactly what was coming. The day of the big presentation to leadership arrived. I walked into the conference room with my laptop, prepared to step in if needed. But when I sat down, the screen showed Brad's presentation, not the collaborative one we had worked on. My stomach dropped. I looked at the slides. Everything was mine. My research, my scripts, my strategy, my phrasing, my charts, my idea outlines, even my jokes. He didn't even bother to change the slide design I used. And then he did it. He presented it like he created the entire thing from scratch. I sat there in silent rage while the VPs nodded, impressed. When he finished, they applauded. VPS, outstanding work, Brad. VPS, this is some of the sharpest strategy we've seen this year. Then came the punch to the gut. Martha smiled at Brad warmly and said, "See? This is why I trust you with the big stuff." I swear, I felt my vision blur for a second. Even worse, after the meeting, Brad patted my shoulder and said, "Team effort, right? Team effort? Sir, where?" That night, I went home angry, like pacing around the living room angry. I knew if I went to HR with just "he stole my work," they'd do nothing. Brad had charm. I had facts, but facts don't always win when favoritism is involved. So I did what any emotionally damaged but highly organized millennial would do. I built a digital folder of receipts, emails, draft documents, metadata, revision timestamps, chat logs, voice note timestamps, side-by-side comparisons, everything.
But I wasn't going to HR.
Oh no, this needed to be bigger.
Public.
Undeniable. Corporate career ending. I wanted precise, legal, HR approved, guilt-proof revenge. Because you don't steal months of my work and walk away smiling. And when I say golden, I mean gift from the heavens golden. A new executive was brought in from another company, someone known for cracking down on lazy managers and sloppy workflows. They wanted to review our department's creative process. And they scheduled a mandatory meeting where We all had to explain our exact contributions to the project. Brad had no idea, but I already felt the spark of revenge warming up. And I was ready. So painfully ready. The day of the executive review arrived, and I could feel my pulse in my temples. I wasn't nervous about speaking in front of the new executive, though I was nervous about Brad realizing what was coming. He had no clue I had been saving every single piece of evidence of his theft. The room was tense. Everyone filed in, laptops open, prepared to showcase their contributions. Brad strutted in as usual, confident, smiling, shaking hands, acting like he already owned the room. The new executive, let's call her Ms. Reynolds, got right to the point. We're here to understand how each of you contributed to the rebranding project. We want specifics, evidence, and clarity. No fluff. Brad's smug grin faltered just slightly at the word evidence. I took my seat, quietly opening the folder I had prepared. Every draft, email, timestamp, and chat log neatly organized. It looked harmless at first glance, a normal working folder. But it contained irrefutable proof of my contributions. Some of my coworkers went first. Standard stuff. I coordinated the social media team. I approved graphics. I managed timelines. Simple, factual, short. No one claimed glory that wasn't theirs. Then it was Brad's turn. So, for the rebranding project, I led the strategy and developed the primary messaging. The content and graphics? My vision. He glanced at me like he expected a polite nod. A few VPs murmured, impressive. I stayed quiet.
Calm.
Collected. Ms. Reynolds looked at me. And you, OP? Walk us through your contributions. I took a deep breath. I opened my folder and connected my laptop to the projector.
Sure.
Let's go slide by slide. I started with the earliest drafts of the campaign, showing the timestamps. Every piece of content, every chart, every script, every tagline, it was all originally created by me. I compared the draft files to the presentation Brad just delivered. The difference was staggering. His slides were almost identical, word for word, to my original drafts. I explained, calmly and methodically, which emails contained my initial strategy suggestions, which chat logs included my brainstorming notes, which documents were approved internally before Brad finalized them. And then, I showed the magic slide, a side-by-side comparison of my drafts versus Brad's presentation. As you can see, I said, pointing to the screen, the final slides presented as Brad's work are directly based on my drafts. The timestamps and document history confirm that these were created by me first. The room went silent. Dead silent. You could hear a pen drop. Brad's face went from confident to pale. He stammered. I coordinated the final presentation. Yes, I said, coordinating the slides is different from creating the content. And as Ms. Reynolds requested, we are going through exact contributions. His fake smile disappeared. He tried to interject, but Ms. Reynolds raised a hand. Let Opie finish. Then you'll have your chance to explain. He was trapped. Every VP in the room was looking at the slide deck, clearly following along. You could see the realization sink in on his face. He had no way to deny the evidence. I guess I coordinated the slides. Everyone in the room, including the VPs and Ms. Reynolds, exchanged looks. I continued, pointing to email chains where I suggested improvements that ended up in his final vision, chat logs where I offered drafts for his review, and document metadata proving that every word he claimed as his own was mine first. It's all documented, I said softly but firmly. Every contribution that formed the foundation of this project came from my drafts, communications, and work. The final slides, while polished, are based entirely on the content I produced. Brad's jaw was tight. He opened his mouth, tried to talk, but every single thing he wanted to say would have sounded like admitting guilt. The executive leaned back in her chair and raised her eyebrows. Brad, do you have anything to add? He swallowed hard. As clear, coordinating slides does not equal creating a strategy. Ms. Reynolds turned to me. OP, thank you for walking us through this. I appreciate the clarity and the documentation. Then she addressed the room. It seems we have some discrepancies in how contributions were represented internally. This needs to be addressed immediately. Brad slumped in his chair. He was sweating. His previously confident demeanor was gone. And me? I sat back, calm, collected, barely hiding my satisfaction. Because I knew that the following weeks were going to be very interesting. The VPs and Ms. Reynolds thanked me personally after the meeting. They were shocked that someone had literally saved all the evidence and presented it professionally. They mentioned that this would be reviewed at a corporate level and that any misrepresentation of work would have consequences. I didn't gloat. Not yet. I let the process work itself out. Meanwhile, Brad? He had to sit in his office for hours while corporate called him in to explain every claim. According to my sources, aka coworkers who whispered every detail to me, he spent the rest of the day trying to justify himself and failing miserably. I left that day knowing the battle wasn't completely over, but the war was turning in my favor. After the meeting, word spread fast. Corporate reviewed all my files, emails, and drafts. Brad tried to defend himself, but the evidence was bulletproof. Within a week, Brad was removed from any client-facing projects. He was officially reprimanded for misrepresenting work. My name was officially recognized for the rebranding project. I even got a small bonus for handling the fallout professionally. The best part? Brad's reputation in the office tanked. He avoided eye contact, no one trusted him anymore, and every time he tried to take credit, people politely reminded him. We all saw the emails, remember? I didn't have to do anything else. I just let the evidence speak for itself. In the end, I got the recognition I deserved, and Brad learned a harsh lesson. Stealing someone else's work has consequences. And me? I kept my calm, my dignity, and my reputation intact. Lesson learned. Always document your work. Because sometimes, the only revenge that matters is letting the truth expose them. Have you ever had a coworker steal your work? What would you do in this situation? Drop your story in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more wild workplace revenge stories. Thanks for watching, see you on the next episode.